And we're live.
Hello, hello.
Yay.
Yep, we're here. We made it.
I know. I forgot to check on YouTube. I was going to share it and I never did.
I mentioned it on Instagram a few days ago. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We are, of course, discussing the Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman himself.
Yay.
Hello. Good evening. Hi, Kat.
Hello. All
Hi,
the usual
Pam.
suspects are here.
Oh, yeah. Hi, Andy. Yeah, I'm especially excited to talk about this book because this is, I would probably say, it's safe to say it's one of my favorites of all time.
And I read this book the first time because of you. Because of you saying that. That's the reason that at that point I wasn't doing my Newbery project. So I would have eventually read it, but I read it initially first time around because of you.
Now it's like a full circle moment.
Full circle moment. I love it.
It looks like Kat has reread it, or has, for the book club. Oh, that's okay, Teresa.
Stay for a little. We'll tell you when we get to spoilery stuff.
Yeah. I have to remember that. Okay, so a few people have read it before the book club. Yeah. I figured a lot of people would have just because it came out, I think, in 2008. Yeah. So it's been around for a while now. But it looks like everybody has really enjoyed it so far. Oh, Debbie says that it was a reread and she liked it better this time. Okay. Cool. And Teresa is 60% done. Okay. I will keep that in mind.
You're pretty close.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think let's go ahead and get started with our overall thoughts and ratings. And I'm interested to hear, like, those of you, including you, Krista, who've read it before, like, what was your original rating, if you can remember it, versus now? Has it changed at all?
Yeah. Well, I can start and then share in the comments too, you guys, what you thought of it overall. This was my second time. Like I said, the first time was a couple years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I forget. Maybe even 5. I don't know. It was a while ago. And like I said, I read it because of Jenna's influence. And I loved it the first time and gave it 5 stars. This time around, I found it enjoyable, but I wanted more. I don't know. I just wanted a little more, maybe about Silas. There was just a couple things that I just wanted a little more. And we'll get into some of that, but I would have rated it probably this time 4 stars. I'm not changing my Goodreads rating though. I'm just going to leave it at 5. So we'll call it 4.5. We'll average it down.
That's fair.
Because I think I would give it 4 stars this time. I think Bod annoyed me a little more this time, or not annoyed me, but it felt, I don't know, it just didn't have the same magic, I guess, that it did the first time around. It didn't, maybe because I knew a little, like, even though it had been so long, I don't know. I can't exactly put my finger on it, but it was still enjoyable, but not a 5-star read for me this time.
Gotcha. Yeah, I can definitely relate to a lot of what you're saying, but the ending really brought it back up for me.
Yeah.
Like I think that the ending it was bittersweet
Yeah.
and yeah, definitely sad but uplifting at the same time.
Yeah.
I still yeah, I can't help but give it 5 stars because part of it is just like the nostalgia for me. It's written in a very nostalgic like way, like almost a childlike way. Um, and it almost has it feels very timeless to me.
Mm.
Um, it's almost I'm reminded of a little bit of the way that The Hobbit is written. It's I wish I had the more words to describe it. It just feels like a classic, like a modern classic. And I just really like the way that I really like the narrative voice. Like you can just feel that it's Neil Gaiman telling you this story. And sometimes I don't like that, but for this story, I think it just really worked. Um, but yeah, it didn't blow me away like it did the first time that I read it. Like it just didn't have as much of that magic as it did the first time around. And I know that's to be like somewhat expected because, after all, like we've
Yeah.
read the story before,
Sure.
but I do when you're talking about Bod kind of annoying you at a few different points, he did for me too. Do you remember like specific points where you were just not liking him as
No,
much?
I don't know if I mean, maybe as we talk about stuff, it'll come to me, but
Yeah.
yeah. I think it was more just an overall, I didn't love it as much as the first time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it wasn't until he started to get a little bit older and more he started to drive the plot more with his decisions
Yeah.
that he just became more real to me and not just like this little kid.
Yeah.
But there were so many details that I forgot. Like Mr. Frost.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize that's who he was.
Yeah.
Or I forgot about it at
Let me
least.
see. We have
Um,
a mix of thoughts
yeah.
in the comments. Some 5, some 3, some DNF.
Yeah, so Cat is still a 5 star for Cat. Aaron says 5 stars. Okay, Marcy didn't enjoy it, don't like. Okay, not as much into the paranormal. Yeah, it was definitely very dark, especially at the beginning.
Very beginning, yeah.
Very interesting. Like the beginning, but ended up being a DNF. Okay, it was just not a book that I could really connect with. And Amanda has the same opinion. Amanda could
Yeah.
not be here with us tonight, but she said she got about 30 to 40% of the way through,
Yeah.
and she
A
just
couple
couldn't get it.
times. She tried multiple times and she just couldn't connect with the
Yeah.
writing style, and the story itself just wasn't doing it for her. So you're
Hmm.
not alone.
Yeah, definitely not. 3.5. That's not bad. It does feel like a classic. Teresa is enjoying, even though she's not a fantasy person. It's definitely a low, maybe even an urban fantasy if you really want to try to put it in a
Or like
box, I guess.
paranormal fantasy
Yeah.
kind of.
Which that always like makes me think of like Twilight,
I
but
know. It's
this is not Twilight.
no, not at
Angela, 5 stars. The premise is not only so unique, it just really made me think about what it means to truly live. I absolutely love the last chapter.
yeah.
Yes, Angela, that is. exactly how I feel too. There were a few chapters that I just kind of felt my interest wane a little bit. I was enjoying it, but the end really sealed the deal for me, for sure. And I'm wondering how Katie feels about the ending, because I know that she loves bittersweet endings.
Yeah.
She's read it before,
I think
hasn't
so.
she?
Yeah. Amanda was the only one who had not read it.
Okay, I thought so. Okay. So I thought it would be fun to talk about the writing style, because that was essentially Amanda's main point for not connecting with it, just the style of writing. So I was interested to see like how everybody felt about that, because for me, that's like the main thing that really drew me in was this voice. But I could definitely see it being an acquired taste for sure.
It's interesting because sometimes a book will really stand out because of the specific writing style. And this one doesn't stand out to me. It definitely has a very clear voice. I listened to it on audio this time around, and Neil Gaiman himself reads the book. So that adds to it. But I didn't feel like it was overly whimsical or full of similes and metaphor. Like some people just write more flowery, like using figurative language and stuff. And it felt definitely like there's a very clear voice, but it didn't feel abnormal or stand out as something different to me. It felt pretty straightforward, which I appreciate because I don't typically like a lot of figurative language. And when I'm reading, it gets a little too much when I have to really stop. What do you really just say what you want to say? And I didn't feel
Yeah.
like that was an issue with this one at all. So
Okay. Anne says the part with the ghouls is where I lost interest. I don't really like that chapter either.
no,
I
I
really
didn't
don't.
love that chapter either.
I mean,
It
overall, like,
comes to play later on. So it's
yeah,
I guess I can see where it's important, but
yep, me too. And
yeah,
it's showing like Bod growing and like becoming more brave and things like that.
and also learning, I mean, yeah, making choices for himself and
Yeah. Yeah, and
branching out and exploring a little bit, but
breaking the rules a little. Yeah, I remember the first time that I read or listened to this book, I think I remember really enjoying The Ghoul Gate, because I was listening to Neil Gaiman narrate it, and
yeah.
it just, he was doing the voices, and the timing of the humor was just
Yeah, there's definitely some humorous parts in that chapter, but
yeah.
yeah.
Like the 33rd president of the United States would only speak in like one syllable at a time. Why? We don't know. Yeah. It was a little absurd.
Yeah.
Um I enjoyed the writing. It seemed to match the story and the characters. I think so. It was straightforward, but it's like almost the sentence structure was kind of whimsical. Michelle also did not like the ghouls. And Katie liked the writing, always left me wondering if I felt more somber or more cozy while reading, kind of fluctuations between the two.
Oh, I like
Yeah, definitely very cozy and somber at the same time. He captured that perfectly.
Yeah,
Oh,
and we did talk about this during our sprints last week, that I think the emphasis on short chapters is a more recent trend in writing. Like in general, as readers, we more and more and more like short chapters, like are like. But I don't think that that was always the case, because I read another Newbery, like an even older, from the 1930s, and the chapters in that were super long. Not super long, but longer as well. And I think that was the norm. I didn't feel like, because I listened to it, I didn't feel like they were super long, but there was music in between each chapter, and I'm like, oh yeah, that was a really long chapter. Like, I look at the audiobook screen on my phone, and it's like 23 minutes until the end of chapter, or 35 minutes until the end of chapter. I'm like, what? That's a long chapter. But yeah, I do think that, well, and not, there's always exceptions that make the rule, but I do think that the trend now is towards much shorter chapters, and that wasn't always the case.
Yeah. Attention spans are just so low these days.
Yeah.
It's just
In
crazy
general.
across all ages, not
Yeah,
like
yeah.
just kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the chapters definitely were very, very long. Some of them were shorter than others.
Yeah.
But it actually, like, that this is a perfect segue into another question that I wanted to ask too, is like, what did we think of the story structure? Because yes, a lot of the chapters were long, and it almost felt like a short story collection at a few different points.
Yeah.
Like each one is just like its own complete little story almost.
Right. And I feel like and I think that's one of the issues I had this time around. I didn't care as much about all the little moments in the graveyard. Like, I wanted to know, like, why was Jack after his family? Who is Silas?
Yeah.
And why is he chosen to be, like, the parts that were directly related to the plot? I wanted more of that. I didn't care as much about some of the other bits and pieces. Although I did like the chapter of him going to school, which doesn't
Oh
have
yeah.
anything to do with the end of the book, but I did like that chapter.
See, I totally forgot about that one. It just
Yeah,
like kind of
same.
threw me for a loop. Like I totally forgot that he even, well, I knew that he left the graveyard a couple of times, but not that he went to school. I
Right.
was like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Um,
And like dealt with the bullies, and
yeah.
yeah, I thought that was a fun chapter. But in general, some of those chapters that didn't move the plot along were a little plodding for me this time. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Excuse me. I did want to know more about the Jacks of all trades, like this organization that's supposedly super old, and there's a prophecy about,
yeah,
Bob
Teresa, if you're
destroying
still
them.
here, we're kind of talking about stuff from the end. So
Oh yeah.
if you want to still finish, maybe see ya. Just a warning, Teresa, that it's a little spoilery now. But yeah, I agree. I wanted a little bit more about the Jacks and the Hounds of Heaven, like
Oh yeah.
Silas and the other Miss
Miss Lupescu. I think
Lupescu.
she could have a whole other book just
I
about
would. I
her.
want more about her. Yeah, and their role and what they were doing in Egypt. Like, I wanted more about all of that.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, a couple comments. Angela really enjoyed the whimsical voice. Wasn't too much, just the right amount of humor. I agree. Kat also enjoyed the writing. Silas is one of my favorite characters. Me too. I love how it's very obvious that he is a vampire, but we don't ever use that word. And I wonder if Neil Gaiman did that kind of on purpose because of the whole like Twilight craze. I don't know. I just thought of that. I don't even know if that's
Funny, because it does leave it up to your even his drawings kind of in the illustrations, he's faded. Like, it's not a very clear picture of what he looks like in all the illustrations. But when I just looked at the graphic novel that I was planning on reading before tonight and didn't get to, but it's very clear in the graphic novel. Oh, yeah, he's a vampire. Like,
yeah.
The book and in the illustration leaves it much more up for question, like, what kind of a creature is he?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can obviously put two and two together, but in the graphic novel, it's like right from the get-go, when you see him for the first time, you're like, oh, clearly he's got the cape and the, yeah.
Yeah, and the hairline, like the Dracula hairline, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I haven't read the Jungle Book, but from what I was doing like research on like Neil Gaiman's inspiration for it and stuff like that, um, I just think it's really cool how he just took this concept of, the boy is raised by the animals. Well, instead of animals, why not ghosts in a graveyard? But that's cool to know that the Jungle Book also has episodic chapters. So that was, the main reasoning why
And I
Neil
think
Gaiman.
maybe that's another reason why I didn't like it as much. I'm learning. I don't love that. I don't like slice of life episodic kind of chapters. Cranford
Hmm.
from Mary or Elizabeth Gaskell, I don't love. At Home in Mitford, I just recently tried to read, and it's very much the same, and it's not my favorite. I want
Hmm.
there to be a story that's pulling me all the way through. And it does come back to it, but yeah, I'm learning that about myself in this year, actually. I'm just learning it now.
Side note, I picked up At Home in Mitford because you were talking about how so many people wanted you to read it. And then I watched your video and I was like, oh no, she didn't like it. But I'm still gonna check it out. But now I'm a bit more hesitant now that I know that it has episodic chapters because I don't think I like that either. But I'm so attached to this particular book that I don't
Sure.
care.
Yeah. It's very sweet and very cozy. But it's
Yeah.
not my favorite type of story.
Yeah.
Very Truman. That's funny.
I also looked it up. Harry Truman, that's true. That's a definite right. You know what? Because we were talking about wanting another book about Miss Lupescu or a continuation of the story where we find out like more about the Jacks. Neil Gaiman has hinted years ago now. I don't know if it's ever going to happen, but he has hinted that there could be more to this story, and he is so totally down for writing a sequel or a companion novel. So
Cool.
maybe. Um, oh, okay. Gotcha. So maybe if you aren't into the longer chapters, maybe try out one of the other formats.
Yep.
I also really liked Silas. Who was your favorite character, Krista? Because I really like Silas and Eliza.
Yes, I also liked Silas. Eliza, I liked at times, but sometimes not. Scarlett did not like Scarlett. And I just thought the scene with Mrs. Owens at the end was just precious when she sang the lullaby and remembered the ending of it. I loved that scene with her at the end. Um, so I liked Mrs. Owens too, but she wasn't really
Yeah.
in most of it. It just was the beginning and the end. But
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she was precious. Yeah, Eliza had a bit of an attitude a couple of times. Sometimes I thought it was funny, but other times I was like, okay, come on.
yeah,
I like the part where he went to school and encouraged rebellion against the bullies. Yes.
yeah.
It was creepy in a good way. Hello, welcome. There we go. Oh yeah, I liked how they taught him letters, reading and math using the letters and numbers on the tombstones. Me
Yeah.
too.
That's all they had. There was only a
Yeah.
very few amount of books in the graveyard. So that's what they had until Silas was able to get more stuff. But
Right. I also liked the little the is it called an epitaph or the little inscription? How when he would introduce a new character, it would say like the dates born and
and
deceased,
then
and then there's a
yeah,
little
yeah.
some of them are really funny. Yes, Silas is not verbally confirmed to be a vampire, but he's definitely a vampire. I loved meeting all the different people too, from the different time periods, like the Caius Pompeius from
Right.
ancient Rome, and then you have the whole situation with the Indigo Man slash the Sleer, and that was just so weird and cool and interesting all at the same time.
And the idea of like they had to go down into the hill because it was so old that the hill kind of grew up over there, that grave.
Yeah. Yeah, I could never. I could never.
No.
Yes. Yeah. May
Make
he
you
wake
wait.
to glory.
Yeah.
There's some of them were really funny. I can't think of them off the top of my head right now.
I loved the cop scene too.
Oh yeah. That's one of those that I totally forgot about. Like this
He's like, "You
whole
killed my dad."
oh yeah.
That was funny. When Mo thought she was pulling one over, and he was like, "Nah, girl, I
Mm-mm.
got you."
That was when his cleverness first started to come out for me.
Yeah.
Like really, for the first time I started to see like, oh, what he's gonna be like, whenever he
Yeah.
gets older, and he's definitely has much more of a personality now. Yes. I'm curious to know where Bod went and if he plans to come back to the graveyard at any point, and um, maybe even a prequel with Miss Lupescu and Silas and the honor guard. That's like
The
their
honor guard, and the Jacks, and like how those two organizations started and their
yes,
ongoing battles. Yeah, that would be a cool story.
totally. Krista, why didn't you like Scarlet?
I mean, I was just her. I didn't like how it all ended. She just kind of, after having this friendship with Bod off and on for years. When they were little, and then when she returned as like a young teen, I guess, right? They were like 13, 12, whatever.
Yeah.
But then after, she just didn't understand everything. And so she was like, "You're not who I thought you were." And she just left. And that was it. And I just was annoyed with her. Like, Scarlet, just because you don't
Yeah.
understand. But as the reader, I do understand. So, but I mean, put myself in her shoes. I get it. But I mean, she knows he has all these weird abilities and can see and talk to the goat. Like, but maybe she really doesn't believe it. I don't know.
Yeah.
She got on my nerves by the end.
Oh yeah. I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but then
I
Debbie says,
wanted a better friend for Bod, is what it is. I wanted him to have a friend. And she was for a while, and I understand she was scared, and felt like bait, because ultimately she kind of was. A little bit, but
yeah, I never even stopped to think about how Scarlet might feel about,
but I didn't think that Bod had that whole solution planned out in his mind. I think he was just flying by the seat of his pants.
I think so. Yeah.
So he was trying to keep her safe by sending her to the most hidden part of the cemetery, not realizing that Jack had this ability to smell and could find her so easily.
Yeah.
And so then I just feel like he was on the spur of the moment trying to figure out how to protect his people, his ghost.
Yeah.
But
I think he did a great job too.
I understand that she was terrified, and I would be horribly terrified too. Forget it, I'd be gone.
Yeah.
But I also think she kind of did him dirty, just being so judgmental and leaving at the end. I wanted a better friend for Bod.
Yeah, I did too. In a way, I kind of understand.
His only friends were ghosts. So here he has a chance to have a real life friend, but their lives had been, it's so different.
Right.
So, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I've got mixed feelings about Scarlet. I don't love her, don't hate her. She's just kind of there. I did wish that, things could have been different in the end, but I also understand why things happened the way that they did. This is a great question, Katie. I don't know.
Like a three-headed snake ghost thing.
There is
Who protected the knife and the brooch and the cup.
yes. Here is an
I know there's one
illustration.
picture. Yeah.
Yeah, there's one picture of the Sleer towards the end with a piece of pizza. And I remember like seeing that picture before I even started rereading it. And I was like, oh, is there a scene that I forgot where the Sleer was eating pizza or it smelled pizza or it was talking about pizza with Bod? No, I don't
I
think pizza
don't know
came
why
up at
he has
all.
pizza.
It's so random.
Oh my goodness.
I think maybe it's like I don't know, like an ancient pagan god or something. I don't know.
That's funny.
But definitely three-headed snake. Oh, and then Katie, I think it was you that mentioned earlier about like trying to figure out which characters from the Graveyard Book parallel with characters from the Jungle Book.
Oh yeah.
And I was thinking that the Sleer was kind of like Ka, the python,
Mm-hmm.
mainly just because of the snake thing. Okay, so yes, I agree, Angela. I think it was cool how he was able to correct people on I think it was at school when he would learn history and he would be like, that's not really how it happened because, I can talk to an ancient Roman. I mean, they gave him a passport.
Yeah.
Also, we need a companion book written from Silas's point of view. Yes, please. Yes. I think that would be great. Okay, so Kat's agreeing with you, Krista. All
Yeah.
God wanted was some human connection. And he definitely had a crush on Scarlett for sure. It was really sweet. Okay. There's a real
At the very first, I thought, like, who is this they got coming in here now?
Yeah, I knew that she was special in some way, shape, or form whenever I started the reread, but I did not remember like how significant of a role she would play.
I thought that was a cool arc, the relationship between Bod and Miss Lupescu, as he began to understand more and more. Well, and when she came and rescued him from the ghouls, and he realized like she's not just being a mean teacher making me do all this stuff and eat healthy food. Like
Right.
she actually has my back and cares about me and is going to come and rescue me when I need it.
And I love that we got that depth for her too. She's not just the strict teacher.
Right.
Like she is, but there's a reason why she does those things. And yeah, I love that they ended up having a good relationship.
Yeah. It was a sweet end to that chapter. I remember when she said something about coming back next year and he's like, I would like that or something. It was just was a sweet little quick conversation, but I was like, oh,
yeah,
growth there.
I never thought about this. I have so many questions. Like, did Bod ever bathe? Where did he use the bathroom?
Well, they did use like the garden. Was it the gardener's hut or whatever? There was a hut on the premises for cemetery workers, and so at one point he went and got clothes from in there.
Maybe there's a tub.
Potentially there's a bathroom in there. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I don't know.
Okay, so back to Jungle Book versus the Graveyard Book. So the Sleer and Ka for sure. Silas definitely Bagheera.
Yeah.
The Black Panther. And I think it was really cool how Bagheera is a Black Panther And Silas is always described as being like a velvety
Yeah.
black, like when it comes to his clothes or how he flutters off into the night. I couldn't decide who Baloo might be. So that's a really interesting theory, Katie, that the Baloo figure is Miss Lupescu. And then Jack is, yes, Shere Khan, the tiger.
Yep.
And I was so excited because towards the end of the book, there's a little line that it's basically says, Mr. Frost growled like a tiger. And I was like, yes,
Yeah.
I see you, Neil Gaiman.
Nice.
Yeah. Oh, I came up with a list. Where was more? Oh, the ghouls. I thought the ghouls might be the vultures that sing the song about We're Your Friends, I think it's
We're your
called.
friends, we're your friends, we're your friends to the bitter end, the bitter. I don't know. What do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do?
Yeah. Probably the vultures for the ghouls. Because there's 3 vultures and there were 3 ghouls, right?
Yeah.
Or were there 4 vultures?
I don't know. I don't remember. I have never read Jungle Book. I've only seen the movie, and it's been a really long time.
Same. And then you have the ghosts are kind of like the wolf pack that raised Mowgli, or at least up to a certain point. And then Scarlet is obviously the village girl that Mowgli
that he sees.
sees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Owens are the wolves. Uh-huh.
Did he ever brush his teeth? I don't know.
No.
We have to check the gardener's hut.
Stank breath.
Never read the Jungle Book. It's going to be even more fun now when I do. I agree. I think, yeah, I'll be more excited for it now. The Owens are the wolves. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, yay. Everybody's excited to read the Jungle Book now. That's awesome. Yeah, I don't know anything about the story other than what the Disney movie has already told us.
Another chapter that I didn't love is the Dance Macabre.
Okay. Yep. I was going to ask everybody about that.
The ghost teachers are the elephants. I love it.
Oh. I didn't think about that one. Nice. So the dance, the macabre, as they kept calling it, I felt it was a bit weird. It took me out of the story. It felt out of place and random.
It really did. Like, what was the point of it? Like, all of a sudden, they have one night of year. It's like Halloween, I guess, right? They have one night of the year where they come out of the graveyard and interact with the living people in town, dancing with them. And then you never talk about it again.
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
And I felt like Bod, because nobody was answering his questions. And he's like, what's going on? Why are you talking about this? What's going to happen? Everybody's getting ready for what? What are we doing?
What's with the flowers? Yeah.
But then did it only happen just that one year? Like, why, if it doesn't happen every year, it just happened that one time.
They only do it. Yes. Yep. That's exactly right.
Right. When the winter
they only did it with the winter blossoms bloomed. Blossomed.
Right. It was such a bizarre chapter.
It was very bizarre. And I honestly, I didn't like it. But then I did see, now I still don't really like it, but I found a quote from Neil Gaiman because somebody asked him, like, what is your favorite chapter in the book? And he said the Dance Macabre, that's how you say it. Yeah. He says, and I quote, this chapter, well, let me back up. So the Graveyard Book is obviously inspired by the Jungle Book. We've covered that already, but he was also inspired heavily by the Mary Poppins stories. And he said about this chapter, This chapter is just the sort of thing that would happen in Mary Poppins, where everyone in town would be off flying about and then not remember it afterward.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely weird, absurd, random, but I guess that's just what he was going for. Yeah, I mean, the only thing that, yeah, seems like a lot of people agree with us. Um, the only thing that I could like pull out of that chapter as another reason for why it's there is that one, I think it's beautifully written, but it also makes the idea of death a bit less scary and more like a beautiful thing,
Yeah.
like a dance with death. I have read The Wind in the Willows, Katie, but I don't remember
I don't remember
that
that chapter
part.
either, but I didn't love the whole book, and I just was kind of reading it to finish it.
Mm,
You know, some books you read because you're really just enjoying it, and some books you're like, I just want to read it to be done.
yep. I remember feeling that way a couple times in The Wind and the Willows, but there are other
There were
parts that
parts
I
that I
thought were
loved,
really
yeah.
cozy. Yeah.
Yeah, there were parts that I did really enjoy, but
Okay, so back to the macabre. Aaron says, I think it was also to remind readers in Bod that this is part of the human world.
oh, cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, let's see. There's so many other things that I wanted to say. Oh, so speaking of weird symbols or questionable things that we're questioning, um, what did you guys think that the lady on the gray or the lady in gray, what do you think she was or symbolized? If you have any thoughts.
Well, I thought of her as the one who escorts people from the land of the living to the land of the dead, if you will. Like,
Mm,
because it said, like, at the end, he would either come back to visit the graveyard on his own or come with Lady on in the Gray or whatever her name was.
okay.
So either he would come and visit as a living person or be escorted there by death, maybe. Yeah, like the Grim Reaper
Yeah.
type of a character. Yeah.
Like she possibly was death itself or
Right.
like the
Something like
angel
that.
of death.
Yeah. Well, because I was just looking at the Dance Macabre chapter again, and he was telling Silas all about it and said that he danced with that lady
Oh
in
yeah.
gray, and Silas was like, "This conversation is over." Like, put an end to
Mm.
talking about it, even because they didn't mess around with that with her.
Yeah, yeah. She's definitely an authority figure for sure. A Valkyrie. So I only know the character Valkyrie in Thor. I don't know what the what would you even call it? Like that mythological figure or creature. I'm not sure like what the function is. Maybe. Wasn't she
Goes to
death?
get
She
you.
goes to get you and brings you over. I mean, maybe.
That's kind of what I thought.
Kind of like the who's the figure in Greek mythology? I think it's Sharon or Charon, the ferryman who is like he's on the
Oh,
ferry and you give him coins and then he takes you over the river. Maybe. I agree with Krista because of the quote at the end.
yeah, that's the one I was just saying about how he would come either. Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about too. I just don't remember where it was.
Yeah, before he would finally return to the graveyard or ride with the lady on the broad back of her great stallion.
Mm.
There's a lot there's just a lot to do before then. But between now and then, there was life. And he walked into it with his eyes and his heart wide open.
I love it.
Use the last illustration. Like, that's
Mm-hmm.
how the book ends. Dun, dun, dun.
Death. I felt that the Gray Lady story was left hanging. Yeah, we don't get a lot of information or specific information about who she really is and what she does. It's implied for sure, but
I
it's
like
another
that.
opportunity in
He
a
does the
sequel.
same thing. He does the same thing with Silas. Like,
Yeah.
we know because of our reading and life knowledge, we know that he's supposed to be a vampire, but Gaiman never says that. So I feel like it's kind of the same thing with the Gray Lady. Like, you can imply what you want from it based
Hmm.
on whatever experience and thoughts you have about it.
Yeah. I kind of like that in a way, but at the same time, I do want more. A Valkyrie is one of a host of female figures who guide souls of the dead to the god Odin's hall, Valhalla.
Oh,
Okay. Maybe she's a conglomeration of
yeah.
all of these things. That would be cool.
Um,
What was the graphic
I
novel?
I borrowed it from Hoopla and then I never read it. I totally forgot that I had it because I don't really use Hoopla very much. And I got into other things once I finished this one. And so, yeah, I totally forgot that I had it. I might still bust it out before the end of the month, but it's not a very high priority, honestly.
Hmm.
But
Has anybody read Coraline by Neil Gaiman? I was curious. I did read Coraline actually for the first time earlier this year
okay.
because I was watching Neil Gaiman's masterclass on storytelling, which is on Hoopla, or at least I have access to it through my library. And it was really good. And he talked a lot about Coraline and like his writing process and things like that. Okay, so a few of us have also read Coraline. Cool. Anyway, I was excited to read it. I finally did. I finally read it this year. But I think I prefer the Graveyard Book. Maybe it's just nostalgia for me. And it was my first Neil Gaiman book. Oh, everybody loves Coraline.
It's straight creepy. I've only seen did I read a graphic novel of it or did I see a show? I don't remember how I consumed Coraline, but it was too creepy for me.
Mm, it was creepy.
I didn't feel like this was creepy. There was enough humor and I mean, it's dark. The beginning, like the actual storyline is pretty dark,
Yeah.
but I mean, it starts out with 3 murders right off the bat.
Yep.
So it's pretty gruesome, but it's not creepy, scary creepy. Coraline just creeps me out. I can't.
Yeah, there's the scenes too, and I know it's not the book that we're discussing, but there's the scenes where she's like traveling between like the worlds and stuff,
Yeah,
and it's like claustrophobic, and it's really creepy.
yeah, it's disturbing. That's a good word for it, Marcy. Disturbing.
Yeah, yeah, and you know what? That is okay.
Yeah, I've read
Um,
this and I read The Ocean at the End of the Lane. I definitely like this one. I did not like The Ocean at the End of the Lane. But
mm.
I don't think in general, he's not the author for me either. Although the one that I would still be interested in reading is Stardust because I love the movie.
Oh yeah, yeah. I have Stardust, and I'd like to read it before the end of the year. Um, so yeah. Um, oh, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, Coraline. I think something that it had in common with the Graveyard Book is like this theme of like a child learning to become brave and like trying to figure out like where they stand and what they want to stand up for and things like that. I just like that theme of bravery. Like it's dark, and especially Coraline is creepy and gruesome at times, but she still like finds the courage to be brave even at the same time if she is scared. Um,
My question for this one is, why do you think it won a Newbery? Because it
hmm.
won here. I don't know what it was up against, but
Oh, that's a good question. I wonder.
because it won 2000, well, it was in 2008, so it would have won in 2009. It won the Newbery.
Let me see. I'm gonna look up some information about like what it was up against.
Or what were the honor
Um,
books that year as well? Because they would have been the other high ranking. Why do you guys think this one won a Newbery?
so he was
That's
up
so
against
unique.
Jacqueline Woodson, Ingrid Law, Margarita Engel, and Kathy Appelt. The only no, I've heard of Kathy Appelt before, but I haven't read anything. The only other author that I would be familiar with is Jacqueline Woodson, because I know she wrote Brown Girl Dreaming.
Yep, and Ingrid Law wrote Savvy.
Yeah, that Savvy was the book that it, yeah.
Okay. I
Mhm.
haven't read Savvy yet.
It's The Underneath, The Surrender Tree, Savvy, and After Tupac and Dee Foster.
Oh, I don't
Yeah.
know any of those. I mean, I have Savvy, but I haven't read it, but I've never heard of the other ones.
Oh, wow. It won the Newbery and the Carnegie, only book to do both. I didn't know that last part.
That's cool.
As far as why it won the Newbery, I mean, I think it's very different.
Yeah.
Um, it it's different in its story structure. It's different in its writing style. At least I feel like it is. The premise is extremely unique, and it's like honoring a classic children's piece of children's literature in the Jungle Book. It does like there's some things to learn in it, like a little bit of history here and there. But then it's very uplifting at the end. And it celebrates. Oh, this is another thing that I wanted to bring up. It celebrates life by talking a lot about death.
Yeah.
And like the contrast between the two.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I didn't write that down. So I'm paraphrasing, but Neil Gaiman said in an interview, I think I found it on YouTube. He said that where else am I going to get a chance to write about the beauty of just being able to breathe? Except like in a graveyard where nobody's breathing except for one person.
Right.
And just the beauty of life in contrast with death. And maybe that had a lot to do with it.
It is very unique for sure. That comment too.
Yeah, innovative concept, very uplifting ending with Bod choosing to be a part of the human world. He chooses life. That's true.
He does.
Yeah, he could have just done the easy thing and just, stayed where he was. And because he said all of his friends are dead. And
except that it was time for him to move on. Like he wasn't able to stick his head into somebody's grave. He wasn't able to see, like as he was getting older, some of that childhood, like kind of lack of inhibitions that, I mean, that was all he knew when he was little. But as he got older and experienced a little more, and like he was just, I think some of that freedom that he had as a kid was like going away. Just in that last chapter, we saw a couple times that he went to like stick his head into somebody's grave and wept it on the stone. He couldn't do that anymore. And then he couldn't find anybody. Remember when he was like, everybody go? Well, it's because I think that's kind of showing the transition into like it was time to transition out.
Right. Yeah.
Into adolescence.
Right. Growing
Young
up.
adulthood, maybe.
Yeah, the parallel between it and the Jungle Book and with its intriguing writing about life and death. Yeah, for sure. It has won many, many awards. Yeah, I believe it. And then Debbie says, I think the book taught a lot about life and love. I think I haven't, well, obviously, Krista, you would know better probably than any of us because you've read the most Newberries. But from the ones that I've read and the ones that I'm familiar with, it does seem to me like a common thread is just something uplifting about life that we all can identify with,
Sure.
no matter like where we come from
Yeah.
in love. Yeah. It's a good one. Oh, and you mentioned The Ocean at the End of the Lane, Krista. I've also read The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman, and it's, for those of you who may not be familiar, it's an adult book of his that is like I don't know if I would call it fantasy. There's definitely some fantastical elements for sure. But one of the characters in that book is Letty Hempstock. And then in this book, we have Eliza Hempstock.
Oh.
And that is something that I picked up on whenever I read The Ocean at the End of the Lane, because I read that after I read the Graveyard Book a few years ago. And I was like, that's weird that they have the same last name. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to look that up one day. And then I never did. Well, I finally did. And Neil Gaiman mentioned that the hemp stalks are they're all related. And there's even more hemp stalks in another one of his books.
How funny.
I can't remember the name of it now. Maybe American Gods or something like that. I can't remember. But yeah, it's like this family of witches that are like scattered throughout a bunch of his books.
That's cool. How fun for him to do something like that. Like for him,
right.
For the reader too, but I think for him to find a way to fit them in was probably fun.
It's little Easter eggs.
Yeah.
The theme of the living and the dead being connected is a theme in the Graveyard Book and in the Miraculous. Mm-hmm. That's true. Yep. Been reading some deep ones recently. I think we can all identify with wanting to stay where it's safe or venturing out into the unknown and embracing life. Yeah. The ending definitely made me want to embrace life and be a little bit more adventurous. It really did.
Nice.
Erin says, I also feel Gaiman doesn't dumb down his storytelling just because this book is for children. He shows that children can handle heavier themes.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
Yeah, for sure.
And speaking of heavier themes, we're going for a heavy one next month. All right, did you have any other questions, or can we transition to?
No, I'm pretty. Oh, there was one more fun fact that I looked up that I thought everybody would enjoy. So, the word nobody in this book is only used in referring to Bod's name, so with a capital N. Any other time Neil Gaiman needed to say the word nobody as not Bod's name, he would change it to no one instead.
Oh.
So anytime we see nobody, it's referring to Bod specifically. I thought that was cool.
Was anyone else bummed that he didn't learn his actual name?
Yes.
I was so bummed. That guy was like, Jack was like, maybe it's Peter. Maybe it's George, whatever he was saying. I'm like, don't be a brat. He was a brat.
Yeah, I was so curious. I wanted to know what it was, but I also appreciate the beauty.
Right, sure. For the sake of the story, it's good that we don't. As a reader, I'm like, I wanted to just tell me his name.
Yeah. Yep.
Because, we attribute a lot to names, and he was nobody Owen. Like, that's who he was. Yeah. So to then give him a different name, does that nullify all of his experience as nobody Owens? I don't know. No, it shouldn't.
Debbie says maybe it was Bob. Well, the last name, they showed the last name. The last name of the family was Dorian. So his last name is Dorian.
That's true.
I don't know.
I'm surprised Scarlett didn't go track it down.
Oh yeah, that would have been really sad if he encountered his family as ghosts. Maybe in the sequel, if we ever get one. But anyway, so we have reached the end of the hour. So we wanted to share with you guys, just to remind you what book we're going to be reading next month. And it is Free Lunch by Rex Ogle. And it is a pretty short one, like less than 200 pages, I think.
Yeah, just under 200 pages. It's a nonfiction, but it's going to be one to make you think, and it's a little heavy. Like some parts of it can be a little difficult to read. But Amanda has read it and absolutely loves it. So we're going to give our thoughts to that one next month if you want to join in. There are 5 Wednesdays in November, but we will be meeting on 29th, which is after Thanksgiving weekend.
Yes.
The week after Thanksgiving. So hopefully it doesn't interfere with anybody's plans with family or whatever. It's not the week of Thanksgiving, so we'll do it the 5th Wednesday, the 29th, which is we always just do the last Wednesday. There will probably be some reading sprints somewhere earlier in the month, but we don't know when that is going to be. Like we kind of are last minute with those anyway. So hopefully you'll be able to join in at some point with those with us. But yeah, we have 3 left. That's crazy.
Wow, that is really crazy.
But thanks for coming to talk about Graveyard Book with us, everybody.
Yeah, I loved it. I'm really glad that we got to read this one. I've been wanting to reread it for a while. It's definitely one of my favorites. So thank you guys so much.
I don't reread very often, almost never. So it was fun to kind of revisit. And I did it a different way because I read in print the first time through. So it was fun to listen to it on audio this time around.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of those ones that I reread often, like during autumn, like maybe in the month of October. I think that would be nice.
It is a perfect October read.
Everybody's saying good night. I guess we should say good night. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much for coming.
Yes. It was always such a pleasure to chat with everybody.
Bye.